Hello again, I'm John Lord, and this is another update to using Litchi and some little tips and tricks that I've learnt as I've been using it. What I do a lot of is surveys for a wildlife trust as a volunteer, in fact, so I don't get paid for it. But it involves flying over a reserve and taking lots of images. So, for example, here we have a reserve. The reserve, in fact, extends all the way down here and so on. So this is a typical project that I will do, or a survey, and it involves a matrix of camera positions at set distances apart, and I then use PT GUI for stitching these together. So because the area is quite big, I have to split it down into, in this case, 3 flights. So that is flight 1, flight 2 is the centre section, flight 3 is the bottom section. And once I've done that and got all the images, I then can put those over to PT GUI and hopefully end up with something like that. So that's a high resolution image of the area. If you compare it with Google, it looks like it's been taken from several thousand feet, but of course we're not allowed to go that high, so it's this image is actually a composite image, and but it gives the effect of seeing it from a greater height. So that's the sort of things that I do, and I've been doing a lot of reserves, especially since the end of August, when the restrictions on flying over some of the reserves due to nesting birds and so on comes off. And in the United Kingdom we've had some very good weather throughout the summer, but in particular September, October and early part of November were really good for flying, so we've been very, very busy, which is one of the reasons that I haven't actually done another video since the previous two. So what I want to show you in this video is a little trick that I learnt. What I should have done was read the Litchi manual, then I would have seen it. But I'm going to open up Litchi Hub, and that should log us in. So it takes us to where I live, which is near the town of Bury St Edmunds in the county of Suffolk. What I'm actually going to do for the purpose of this demonstration is just go to a location which is here, which I did in fact use in the previous videos, and this is a 77 acre field. Now what I showed in the previous video was what I was suggesting is if you want to update all of the waypoints, then what you do, you can export them to a CSV file, edit them in something like Excel, and then re-import them back. But I found on occasions when I was putting waypoints in, I had a window come up which said batch, and that got me thinking, well, perhaps there is a method to change all of the waypoints very quickly, and sure enough there is. And I did call Litchi and ask them, and they said, well, it is in the manual. But of course I don't read the manual, do I? Like a lot of people, you only read the manual as a last resort. So here is the field. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fly from here, and so I'm going to put a waypoint in. It's 98 feet, hasn't got any other settings currently, so that's fine. I'm going to fly up here, and I'm going to create a matrix of camera positions. Now you can see that we've got curved turns on. Well, of course curved turns are not going to work because I need straight lines if I want camera positions. So what I should have done, of course, is gone into the settings and set them first, but I didn't. So we do it now. We just check everything else. Return finish action I've set to none. I'll come back to that a bit later. Cruising speed 15 miles an hour. Yes, you can try going faster, but if your camera positions are something like 250, 260 feet apart, then any faster, and the craft, if it's something like an Inspire 2, which I would be using for this project, it will overshoot the waypoint and it'll have to back up. And it actually takes longer to do the project than it would if you go for a lower speed. Smaller craft like the Mavic, they don't have a problem. They can accelerate up very quickly to nearly 20 miles an hour and come down a lot quicker because they have less inertia. So the rest of my settings here are correct. So now we've taken off this curved turn. So I'm going to add in some waypoints and just quickly add a couple of rows in so I can just demonstrate a little way of updating all the waypoints together. So inserting waypoints on the hub is a lot easier than doing it on the app itself, because when you insert, it automatically goes to the midpoint, and then we click again, it goes to the midpoint again and again. So you can build up a matrix very quickly on the hub, whereas on the app itself it takes quite a bit more time. So there we go, and I'll have it flying back to my takeoff point. So there we have a couple of rows. Bin relative, of course, we're going to have a lot more rows than that. So here is the little trick, and that is that I have one waypoint selected, the last waypoint in this case, but it doesn't matter which. If I hold the command key down, I'm using a Mac, so it's command key. Can't tell you what it is on Windows because I don't run that, but it'll be something like the control key or something on Windows. If I hold the command key down and press and click on another waypoint, I get a window up here which is batch. Now I can then select all, so all my waypoints now have been selected. I can enter the height I want all of them to be, 350 feet. Note it turns red here, so it's going to carry out an action. Cruising speed not bothered about, curve size is irrelevant. Heading is going to be 0 for all of the waypoints. Not interested in POI. The gimbal has got to be at minus 90 degrees because I'm going to take the images looking straight down. And at each waypoint I want the camera to take a picture. So we can now see the things marked in red that are going to change. Simply all I do then is apply, and lo and behold, all of my waypoints now have those settings. So we can quickly click through and see they're all the same. So the only difference is the position. This is very useful indeed. Now, in fact, I don't want to start off at 350 feet. I'm going to just change that one to, say, 125 feet. I'll change my finish one to 125 feet. And the other thing that I like to do is to have a waypoint in before the first real one that I want to photograph. In this case, it's showing as 2. I want a waypoint in before that that allows me to focus the camera. So what I do, I'm just going to insert one, drag that up, and I'm going to set the height to the 350 feet in this case, and the gimbal to minus 90, and the action is to stay there for 10 seconds. So what's going to happen now is my craft is going to start at position 125 feet. It's going to take a picture, take an image. Incidentally, what you will find is there is, call it a bug if you like in Litchi, but if you, as I have here, it's taking a photograph with a camera at the gimbal at minus 90 degrees. In fact, what happens, it takes the picture first and then it sets the gimbal position. So although the gimbal here is set to minus 90 degrees, in fact the picture will be taken with whatever the gimbal is set to, which will be 0 degrees, be horizontal. So that on the first one is pretty well irrelevant, but it means that after the first waypoint, the gimbal will be set to minus 90 degrees. So my second waypoint is minus 90 degrees. It's going to sit there for 10 seconds and so on. And the rest of the waypoints, of course, are the same. So that's a little trick that I've learned. I guess some of you know that already, because you probably would have read the manual, and you're saying, well, silly man, why didn't you read the manual? Okay, one other thing I'd like to say is that I always like to have a waypoint, my last waypoint, close to my takeoff waypoint. And the reason is this, and I'll demonstrate it to you now. It's telling me up the top here that my flight time is 8 minutes. Now, the alternative, of course, is to not have that waypoint near where I take off. So let's delete it. And now it's telling me that my mission time, if you like, is 6 minutes. So I'll go into the settings now and tell it to finish action, return to home, close that. But it hasn't changed the 6 minute, the time. So if I'm on the edge or this distance here is some way away, then I'm not taking account of the time it's flying back here. If I put the waypoint back in, then it is going to show me the back to 8 minutes. So that's why I always have the finish action set to none, and I always have a waypoint close to my takeoff point. Anyway, that's the first little tip that I've got for you, and I will see you in a little while on the next video with another little tip. Thank you for listening and watching, of course.